The chamber fell silent after Tay's words. The weight of what he had revealed pressed down on everyone. Kira stood frozen, her mind struggling to process everything. Vorn had lowered all four of his arms, looking smaller than she had ever seen him. Then Tay spoke again, and what he said changed everything once more. "There is something else you need to know," he said quietly. "Something I have not told anyone in millions of years." Kira found her voice. "What could be bigger than what you have already told us?" Tay walked slowly through the chamber, his footsteps echoing against the ancient stone. He stopped in front of a section of wall that had no carvings. Just smooth, empty surface. This section was left blank on purpose, he explained. It was meant to be finished later, after we woke the others. The others? Vorn repeated. Tay pressed his hand against the smooth stone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly light began to spread from beneath his palm. Lines of soft blue energy traced patterns across the wall, revealing hidden symbols that had been invisible before. Humans were not the only ones who escaped, Tay said. We did not build our civilization alone. We had partners, friends, allies from 1,000 different worlds. Kira felt her breath catch. Other species? Yes. When the darkness came, when we realized we could not defeat it, we made a choice. We would not just save ourselves. We would save everyone we could. The symbols on the wall began to glow brighter. Images appeared in the light. Ships leaving a dying galaxy. Millions of ships, carrying billions of lives. Not just humans, but creatures of every shape and size. All running together. All fleeing the same enemy. We scattered them across the universe, Tay continued. We gave them new homes. New lives. We helped them forget, just as we forgot ourselves. We planted the seeds of new civilizations on 1,000 different worlds. Vorn stepped closer, his scientific mind racing. Are you saying that the species in our galaxy, the ones we know, were created by humans? Tay finished. Not all of them. Some evolved on their own. But many of the great species, the intelligent ones, the ones who formed the Galactic Council, they were our children, our legacy. Kira thought of her own people, the stories they told about their origins, the legends of gods who came from the stars and gave them the gift of thought. She had always believed those were just myths. Now she was not so sure. Does this mean... She started, but Tay held up his hand. Yes, he said. Your species, Kira, Vorn's species. Doll species. Many others. They all carry a piece of us within them. We did not just save them. We helped create them. We shared our knowledge, our genes, our very essence with the universe. The revelation was staggering. Everything Kira had believed about her own history, her own people, was wrong. They were not alone in the universe. They were part of something much larger. A family that stretched back millions of years. But why? Vorn demanded. Why would you do this? Why create new species just to abandon them? Tay's expression grew heavy. Because we knew we could not watch over them forever. We knew that someday the darkness might return. And when it did, we would need help. We would need allies who were strong and brave and capable of standing against the void. He turned to face them directly. We built you, he said. All of you. We built you to be our children, our successors, and, if necessary, our army. The words hung in the air like thunder. Kira felt something shift inside her. Not fear this time. Something else. Pride, maybe. Or purpose. The darkness you spoke of, she said slowly. The thing that destroyed your civilization. Is it coming back? Tay was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. It never left. It has been sleeping, waiting, and lately it has been stirring. Vorn made a sound of alarm. Stirring? What does that mean? It means we are running out of time, Tay said. For millions of years, the darkness has slept beyond the edge of the universe. But nothing sleeps forever. It is waking up, slowly, gradually, and when it fully awakens, it will remember us. It will remember what we did. And it will come. Kira felt cold. How long do we have? I do not know. 1,000 years. 100. Maybe less. Tay shook his head. Time moves differently for something that old. What feels like a moment to it might be centuries for us. But make no mistake, it will come. He walked back to the final panel on the wall. The carving of the ancient humans starting over on Earth. This is why I'm still here, he said. This is why some of us chose to remember. We have been waiting for this moment. The moment when our children would be ready to learn the truth. To join us. To help us finish what we started so long ago. Dole's voice suddenly came through their communication devices. Kira, Vorn, can you hear me? Something is happening. Kira grabbed her communicator. What is it? The sensors are going crazy, Dole replied, his voice tight with worry. There is something out there. At the edge of the system. Something big. And it is moving toward us. Kira and Vorn exchanged frightened glances. But when they looked at Tay, he did not seem surprised. If anything, he seemed almost relieved. It has begun, he said quietly. What has begun? Vorn demanded. Tay smiled. It was a strange smile. Sad and hopeful at the same time. The awakening. Not of the darkness. Not yet, but of us. Of all of us. He looked at Kira with those ancient, knowing eyes. Your discovery of that Deanna sample was not an accident. Nothing is an accident. The universe has a way of bringing things together when the time is right. What do we do? Kira asked. Tay reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm, gentle, like a father comforting a child. You go back to your station. You tell the council what you have learned. You spread the truth to every corner of the galaxy. Let everyone know what they are. Let them know where they came from. And let them know what is coming. And you? Vorn asked. What will you do? Tay looked toward the ceiling, as if he could see through the stone and the sky and the vacuum of space to something far beyond. I will do what I have always done, he said. I will watch. I will wait. And when the time comes, I will fight. He turned and began walking toward the exit of the chamber. Then he paused and looked back one more time. Tell them something else, he said. Tell them not to be afraid. Tell them that we are humans. We have faced the void before. We have survived the end of everything. And we will survive again. His eyes swept across the ancient carvings. The history of his people. The memory of all they had lost and all they had built. Because that is what we do, he said softly. We survive. We adapt. We grow. And no matter how dark the night becomes, we always find our way back to the light. He smiled one last time. We are humanity. We are your creators. Your ancestors. Your family. And when the darkness comes, we will face it together. Then he walked out of the chamber, leaving Kira and Vorn standing among the ancient walls, surrounded by the weight of millions of years of history above them, in the endless black of space. Something was stirring. Something old. Something hungry. But for the first time in millions of years, the universe was not facing it alone. The children of humanity were finally awake, and they were ready to remember. For 3 days, no one knew what to do. Kira spent most of her time in the laboratory, staring at the DNA sample as if it might suddenly reveal more secrets. Vorn locked himself in his quarters, going through every piece of data they had collected, searching for some explanation that made sense. Dole contacted the council but did not tell them anything. He simply asked for more time. And Dr. Partey disappeared. His quarters were empty. His office was cleaned out. There was no sign of where he had gone or how he had left the station. The security logs showed nothing unusual. It was as if he had simply stopped existing. On the fourth day, Kira made a decision. She could not just sit and wait anymore. She needed answers. "I am going down to the planet," she announced to Vorn and Dole during their morning meeting. "There must be something in those ruins that can help us understand what Tay was talking about." Dole frowned. Olo frowned. It might be dangerous. If what Tay said is true, there could be things down there that should not be disturbed. And if we do nothing, we might never know the truth, Kira replied. "I refuse to live in fear of something I do not understand." Vorn looked up from his datapad. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but there was still curiosity burning in them. "I will go with you. If there is evidence to be found, I want to see it for myself." Dole sighed heavily. "Fine, but be careful. Both of you." 2 hours later, Kira and Vorn landed their shuttle on the surface of Nexer 4. The planet was exactly as the reports had described it. Dust covered everything, from the rocky ground to the tall structures that rose up from the surface. The sky was a dull gray, empty of clouds or color. The ruins stood before them like giant skeletons. They were made of a material that no one could identify, something that looked like metal but did not behave like any metal in the galactic database. The buildings were tall and elegant, with smooth curves and sharp angles that seemed to defy logic. "This way," Kira said, pointing toward the largest structure. "That is where we found the DNA sample." They walked in silence, their footsteps leaving prints in the ancient dust. The air was thin but breathable, and the temperature was surprisingly mild. Whatever species had built this place, they had chosen their location carefully. Inside the main building, the walls were covered with strange symbols. Kira had seen them before during her initial survey, but she had not been able to translate them. Now, looking at them again, she noticed something she had missed. "These symbols," she said, stopping to examine one more closely. "They look familiar." Vorn moved beside her. "How so?" "I have seen similar patterns on Earth, in human museums. They call them ancient writing systems. Very old ones, from before their recorded history." Vorn's eyes widened. "Are you saying humans can read these?" "I do not know, but the similarity is too strong to be a coincidence." They continued deeper into the building. The corridors were long and dark, lit only by the lights on their suits. Every few meters, they found more symbols, more patterns. Some of them showed images, stars, planets, creatures that looked almost human but not quite. And then they found the chamber. It was massive. The ceiling stretched up so high that their lights could not reach it. The walls were covered not with symbols but with scenes, pictures carved into the stone, telling a story that had been waiting millions of years to be seen again. Kira walked along the wall, studying each image. The first panel showed a group of figures standing on a planet, looking up at the stars. The second showed them building ships, huge vessels that could carry thousands. The third showed them leaving their world, spreading out across the darkness of space. "It is their history," she whispered. "The history of ancient humans." Vorn moved to another section of the wall. His multiple arms traced the carvings as he tried to understand them. "Look at this. It shows them arriving in different galaxies. They are everywhere. They built civilizations on hundreds of worlds." The images continued. Humans building cities. Humans creating technology. Humans living in peace with other species. It was beautiful, like watching a dream unfold in stone. But then the images changed. The next panel showed something different. A dark shape at the edge of the picture. Something without form or definition. The humans in the carving were facing it, but their expressions were wrong. They looked afraid. "What is that?" Vorn asked. Kira shook her head. "I do not know." The following panels grew darker. The dark shape grew larger. It spread across the images like a disease. Worlds burned. Ships fell from the sky. The great cities crumbled. And the humans, the ancient powerful humans, ran. They ran as far as they could. The final panel showed a small group of humans standing on a primitive world. They wore simple clothes. They carried no technology. Behind them, the stars were quiet again. The darkness was gone, but the humans were different. Their eyes were empty. They had forgotten. They chose this, Kira realized. They gave up everything to escape that thing. They erased themselves to survive. Vorn stepped back from the wall. His face was pale. And now they are starting over. Growing again. Learning again. With no memory of what they once were. Or what they were running from. A voice echoed through the chamber, and both Kira and Vorn spun around. Standing at the entrance was Dr. Park Tae. He looked the same as before, but somehow different too. There was no pretense anymore. No mask of simplicity. He looked like what he truly was. Ancient. Powerful. And very, very tired. "I was wondering when you would come here," Tae said, walking slowly into the chamber. "This was always my favorite place. So much history in these walls." Kira found her voice. "You said you left. Where did you go?" "I did not leave," Tae replied. "I was here, watching, waiting to see what you would do." Vorm pointed to the wall. "Did you know about these carvings? Did you make them?" Tae looked at the images. A deep sadness filled his eyes. "No, I did not make them. But I remember when they were made. I remember the people who carved them. Most of them are gone now. Dead or lost or forgotten like the rest." He walked to the final panel, the one showing the primitive humans on their new world. "This was Earth," he said softly. "Millions of years ago when we first arrived. We were so tired, so broken. We had lost everything. Our friends, our families, our entire civilization. All we wanted was to rest, to forget." Kira approached him carefully. "But you did not forget. You remember everything." Tae nodded. "A few of us had to remember. Someone had to watch. Someone had to make sure that if the darkness ever returned, there would be at least one person who knew how to fight it." "How many of you are there?" Vorn asked. "How many ancient humans still remain?" Tae was quiet for a moment. "A handful, scattered across the galaxy, living quiet lives, waiting for what?" Tae turned to face them. His eyes held depths that Kira could not comprehend. Millions of years of memory, millions of years of loss. And underneath it all, a tiny spark of hope. "Waiting for humanity to be ready again," he said. "Ready to remember. Ready to face what we ran from. Ready to finish what we started." Kira felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, but something else too. A sense of wonder, of possibility. And are they ready? Are humans ready now? Tae smiled. For the first time since she had met him, it was a genuine smile. A smile full of warmth and pride. "I think so," he said. "I think they are finally ready to learn who they really are." He placed his hand on the wall, on the carving of the ancient humans looking up at the stars. "And when they remember," he whispered, "the universe will never be the same." The laboratory was completely silent. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. The only sound was the soft hum of the machines and the distant rumble of the station's engines. Tae stood at the table, his hand resting gently on the container that held the ancient Dian, a sample. His eyes were distant, as if he was looking at something far away. something that none of them could see. "Before I say anything," he began, "I need you to understand something. What I am about to tell you will sound crazy. It will sound impossible. You will want to dismiss it as fantasy or madness. But I'm asking you to listen. Just listen." Dole crossed his massive arms. "We are listening." Tay nodded. He picked up the container and held it up to the light. The tiny brown sample inside looked so small, so fragile. And yet it contained a secret that had been hidden for millions of years. "This DNA," Tay said, "is probably mine." The words hung in the air like smoke. For a long moment, no one reacted. Then Vorn let out a sharp laugh. "That is absurd," he said. "This sample is over 3 million years old. You cannot be more than 40 or 50 years old by human standards." "That is what I look like," Tay agreed. "But that is not what I am." Kira stepped forward. Her translator device beeped twice, indicating that it was having trouble processing what was being said. She tapped it with her finger, thinking it was broken. But it was working perfectly fine. "Dr. Park," she said slowly, "are you saying that you are 3 million years old?" Tay set the container back on the table. He turned to face them, and for the first time, Kira saw something different in his eyes. They were not the kind, tired eyes she had seen before. They were deeper now, older, like looking into a pool of water that had no bottom. "I'm much older than that," Tay said simply. Dole took a step back. His species was known for their bravery, but even he looked unsettled. "This is not possible. No species lives that long. Not even the oldest races in the galaxy." "You are right," Tay said. "No species in this galaxy lives that long. But humans are not originally from this galaxy." The words hit them like a wave. Kira felt her legs go weak. She grabbed the edge of a table to steady herself. Vorn dropped his datapad, and it clattered loudly on the floor. "What are you saying?" Vorn whispered. Tay smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memories and regrets. "I am saying that humans did not evolve on Earth. We came from somewhere else. Somewhere very far away. And we have been traveling through the universe for a very, very long time." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, but now it seemed like a stranger's face. "The first time I came to this planet," Tay continued, "it was not called Nexer 4. It had no name at all. There were no maps, no research stations, no Galactic Council. There was just space, empty and endless." "And us? Us?" Kira asked. "Humans," Tay said. "Or what we were back then. We were explorers, builders. We traveled from galaxy to galaxy, learning and growing. We built great things, amazing things, things you cannot even imagine." Dole shook his head. "If this is true, where is the evidence? Where are the ruins? The records? The technology?" "Gone," Tay said. "All of it gone. We destroyed it ourselves. Why?" Tay was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with pain. "Because we made a mistake. A terrible mistake. We thought we were wise enough to control everything. We thought we could play with the very fabric of reality itself. But we were wrong." He turned back to face them. His eyes were glistening, as if tears were forming but refusing to fall. "We almost destroyed everything. Not just ourselves, but everything. Every star, every planet, every living creature in the universe. We came so close to ending it all." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. "What did you do?" "We found something," Tay said. "At the edge of the universe, beyond the last stars, we found something. Something old. Something that existed before the universe itself. We thought we could study it. We thought we could use it. But we were fools." He closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. It almost consumed us. It almost consumed everything. The only way to stop it was to sacrifice everything we had built. All our technology, all our knowledge, all our records, everything. And the humans who survived? Dole asked. We scattered, Tay said. Across 1,000 galaxies, we scattered. We hid ourselves on primitive worlds. We erased our own memories, our own histories. We became simple creatures again, living simple lives. We hoped that by forgetting, we could escape what we had awakened. He opened his eyes and looked at the container on the table. But some things cannot be forgotten. Some things stay with us, no matter how hard we try to run. Vaughn picked up his datapad from the floor. His hands were shaking. So the ruins on Nexer -4 were built by my people, Tay finished. Millions of years ago. It was one of our research stations. I worked there for a while. I must have left that sample behind. Kira could not believe what she was hearing. This simple-looking human, this quiet scientist who worked in the biology department, was telling them he was millions of years old, that he had helped build the ruins they were studying, that humans were ancient wanderers who had nearly destroyed the universe. Why are you telling us this? She asked. Why now? Tay sighed. Because you found the evidence. Once the council learns about this DNA, they will start asking questions. They will dig deeper. They will find more ruins, more samples, more proof. And eventually, they will learn the truth. And you want to control how they learn it, Dole said. No, Tay replied. I want to warn you. I want you to understand what you are dealing with before you go looking for answers you might not want to find. He walked back to the table and placed his hand on the container again. Humans chose to forget for a reason. We chose to become small again for a reason. If the galaxy starts digging into our past, they might find more than old DNA. They might find things that should stay buried. Kira felt fear rise in her chest. What kind of things? Tay looked at her, and for just a moment, she saw something ancient and terrible in his eyes. The thing we awakened, he said softly. The thing at the edge of the universe. We did not destroy it. We could not. We could only put it to sleep. He paused, letting the words sink in. And it has been sleeping for a very long time. But if someone finds the wrong piece of our old technology, the wrong record, the wrong relic, it might wake up. The laboratory felt colder than before. The lights seemed dimmer. Even the hum of the machine sounded different, like a warning. Dole stepped forward. What do you want us to do? Tay released the container and stepped back. His shoulders sagged, as if a great weight was pressing down on him. I want you to destroy that sample, he said. Destroy your data. Forget what you found. Go back to your lives and pretend this never happened. We cannot do that, Warren protested. This is the most important discovery in galactic history. We cannot just pretend it does not exist. Then, you will doom us all, Tay said quietly. He walked toward the door. Before he reached it, he stopped and looked back at them one more time. I have lived for millions of years, he said. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched stars be born and die. I have witnessed wonders and horrors beyond your imagination. And the one thing I have learned is that some secrets are kept for a reason. He pressed the button and the door slid open. Think carefully about what you do next. The universe is watching. And then he was gone, leaving behind 3 shocked aliens and a tiny sample of DNA that was suddenly more terrifying than any of them could have imagined. The walk back to the main laboratory felt longer than usual. Kira kept stealing glances at Dr. Park Tay, but the human showed no sign of concern. He walked beside her with his hands in his pockets, looking at the walls and the windows as if he was simply enjoying a casual stroll. Beautiful view today, Tay said, nodding toward a large window that showed the stars outside. I never get tired of looking at space. Kira did not respond. Her mind was too full of questions. How would this human react when he saw the DNA sample? Would he be shocked? Confused? Angry? She had no way to know. When they reached the laboratory, the door slid open and Tay stepped inside. Vorn and Dole were standing exactly where Kira had left them, their eyes fixed on the human as he entered. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Tay stopped in the middle of the room and looked around. So, he said casually, what is this strange thing you wanted me to see? Vorn stepped forward. He was holding a datapad in one of his 4 hands, and his expression was serious. Dr. Park, what I am about to show you may be difficult to understand. I need you to remain calm. Tay tilted his head slightly. I am always calm. Vorn handed him the datapad. On the screen was the genetic analysis of the sample, along with the dating results. Tay took the device and looked at it for a long moment. His eyes moved across the data, reading every number and every symbol. Kira watched his face carefully. She expected to see surprise. She expected to see confusion or maybe fear. But instead, she saw nothing. His expression did not change at all. Finally, Tay looked up from the datapad. Interesting, he said. Where did you find this? On the planet below, Dole answered. In the ruins we have been studying. The sample was buried deep inside one of the structures. Tay nodded slowly. And you tested it multiple times? 7 times, Kira said. The result is the same every time. The DNA is human, and it is 3.7 million years old. Tay handed the datapad back to Vorn. He put his hands back in his pockets and looked at the container on the table. The tiny sample sat there, silent and still. Do you understand what this means? Vorn asked. His voice was almost desperate. Human civilization is only a few thousand years old. Your species only developed space travel 300 years ago. This sample is older than your entire history. I understand, Tay said simply. Dole took a step closer. Then perhaps you can explain it. Is there something in human history that we do not know? Some ancient journey that was forgotten? Some secret that your people have kept hidden? Tay turned to look at Dole. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. It was gone so quickly that Kira almost missed it. But she saw it. A brief flash of something deep and old. Human history is complicated, Tay said. We have many old stories. Many legends. Stories about traveling to the stars? Vorn pressed. Some of them, yes. Kira felt her heart beat faster. What kind of stories? Tay smiled gently. It was a kind smile, but there was something sad about it too. Stories about gods who came from the sky. Stories about ancient ancestors who walked among the stars. Stories about a time before time, when humans were more than what we are now. Dole frowned. Those are myths. Religious tales. They are not real. Are they not? Tay asked. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. Every species in the galaxy has stories like these. Stories about their beginnings. Stories about where they came from. Why do you believe your stories, but not ours? The question hung in the air. Dole had no answer. Vorn set down his datapad and crossed all 4 of his arms. Dr. Park, with respect, we are scientists. We deal in facts, not myths. The fact is that we have found human DNA that is millions of years old. That is not a story. That is evidence. Yes, Tay agreed. It is evidence. Evidence of what? Tay did not answer right away. He walked slowly to the window and looked out at the stars. The light from distant suns reflected in his dark eyes. For a long moment, No one spoke. When I was young, Tay said finally, my grandmother used to tell me stories. She said that humans were not always small. She said that once, long ago, we were something greater, something powerful. But we chose to forget. We chose to start over. Kira moved closer to him. Start over? What does that mean? Tay turned to face her. It means exactly what it sounds like. We chose to forget who we were. We chose to become small again. To live simple lives on a simple planet. To grow and learn and discover everything again, as if for the first time. Vorn made a sound of frustration. That does not make sense. Why would any species choose to forget their own history? Why would they give up their knowledge and technology? Because sometimes, Tay said quietly, knowledge becomes a burden, and technology becomes a weapon, and history becomes a chain that holds you to your worst mistakes. The room fell silent again. Dole and Vorn exchanged confused glances. Kira just stared at the human, trying to understand what he was saying. Are you telling us, Dole said slowly, that humans deliberately erased their own past? That they destroyed their own records and started over from nothing? Tay shrugged. I am telling you what my grandmother told me. Whether it is true or not, I cannot say. But there was something in his voice. Something that made Kira think he knew more than he was admitting. She had studied humans during her training. She knew how to read their expressions, their body language, their tone of voice. And right now, everything about Dr. Park Tay was telling her that he was hiding something. Dr. Park, she said carefully, if these stories are true, then humans are not what the galaxy thinks they are. You are not a young species that just learned to travel the stars. You are something much older, something much more powerful. Tay looked at her with those kind, sad eyes. Would that be so hard to believe? Yes, Vorn said firmly. It would be impossible to believe. And yet, you have evidence, Tay replied. He pointed at the container on the table. Right there. Human DNA, 3.7 million years old. Found on a planet that humans have never visited. In ruins built by an unknown civilization. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was even softer. Or perhaps not so unknown. The words hit Kira like a physical force. She took a step back, her mind racing. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Was he suggesting that the ruins on Nexafor were built by humans? That is impossible, Dole said. The architecture does not match anything in human records. The technology used to build those structures is far beyond anything humans have today. Beyond anything humans have today, Tay repeated. Yes, today. Vorn slammed his datapad down on the table. Enough with the riddles. If you know something, tell us plainly. Tay sighed. He rubbed his eyes with one hand, looking suddenly tired. I am sorry. I do not mean to confuse you. The truth is, I am not sure what I know anymore. I have heard stories my entire life. I always thought they were just stories. But now, he looked at the sample again. Now I am not so sure. Kira took a deep breath. Dr. Park, I need you to be honest with me. Is this sample connected to you? To your family? Is there any reason your DNA would be found in a place like this? Tay was quiet for a long moment. Then, very slowly, he nodded. Yes, he said. I think there might be. The three aliens stared at him in shock. What do you mean? Dole demanded. Tay walked back to the table. He looked down at the small container with an expression that Kira could not read. Was it sadness? Recognition? Fear? I mean, Tay said softly, that if I am right about this, then everything you know about humans is wrong. Everything the galaxy knows is wrong. And I am not sure any of us are ready for the truth. He looked up and met Kira's eyes. But I think it is time you found out anyway. The lights in the research station flickered twice before settling into their usual cold blue glow. Deep in the outer arm of the galaxy, far from any populated world, Station Omega-7 floated in silence. It was a place of science, of discovery, and today it would become a place of impossible questions. Vorn stood before the main display screen, his forearms crossed tightly against his chest. His gray skin reflected the light from dozens of data streams flowing across the monitor. He had been a scientist for over 200 cycles, and in all that time, he had never seen anything like this. "Run the test again," he said, his voice low and serious behind him. A small creature named Kira moved quickly across the laboratory floor. She was young for her species, with bright golden eyes and soft blue fur that covered her entire body. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she entered the commands. "I already ran it 7 times, she replied. "The result is the same every time." Vorn did not move. He simply stared at the screen, watching the data scroll past. The numbers did not lie. The genetic pattern was clear. But what the numbers were telling him was impossible. 3.7 million years, he whispered. "That cannot be correct." Kira walked over to stand beside him. She looked up at the screen, her ears flat against her head. "The dating is accurate. I checked it myself. The sample is old. Very old." The sample in question sat in a small container on the table behind them. It was nothing special to look at. Just a tiny piece of organic material, preserved by the cold vacuum of space and the strange minerals of the planet where they had found it. But inside that small piece of material was something that should not exist. Human DNA. Vorn finally turned away from the screen. He walked slowly to the table and looked down at the container. The sample inside was brown and dry, no bigger than a grain of sand. And yet it contained the complete genetic code of a human being. "Humans have only been traveling through space for 300 years, Vorn said. "Their home world is on the other side of the galaxy. They have never been to this sector. They have never even heard of this planet." Kira nodded. "I know. So how is their DNA here? How is it 3.7 million years old?" Kira had no answer. She had been asking herself the same question for hours. When they first found the ruins on the planet below, everyone had been excited. Ancient ruins meant ancient civilizations, and ancient civilizations meant knowledge. But no one had expected this. The planet was called Nexer 4 by the galactic maps. It was a dead world, covered in dust and stone. Nothing lived there. Nothing had lived there for millions of years. The research team had been sent to study the old buildings they found on the surface, to learn about whatever species had built them long ago. At first, they thought the builders were an unknown race. The architecture was strange, different from anything in the galactic records. But then Kira found the sample, and everything changed. The door to the laboratory slid open, and a tall figure walked in. His name was Dole, and he was the station commander. His species was known for their size and their strength, but Dole was known for something else. He was known for being calm, even in the worst situations. But today, even Dole looked worried. "I received your message," he said, his deep voice filling the room. "Tell me this is some kind of mistake." Vorn shook his head. "It is not a mistake. We have tested the sample multiple times. The DNA is human, and it is older than human civilization itself." Dole stood still for a long moment. His large eyes moved from Vorn to Kira, then to the container on the table. He took a slow breath before speaking again. "What does this mean?" "We do not know," Vorn admitted. "It should not be possible. Humans are a young species. They only left their planet a few centuries ago. Before that, they were confined to a single world. They had no way to travel to this sector. And yet their DNA is here," Dole said. "Yes." The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the machines around them. Kira looked down at her feet, trying to think of an explanation. But there was none. The evidence was clear, but it made no sense. Dole walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of light years away, was Earth, the small blue planet where humans had evolved, where they had learned to walk, to speak, to build, where they had eventually learned to reach for the stars. But if this DNA was real, then humans had been reaching for the stars long before anyone thought possible. "We need to contact the council," Dole said finally. "They need to know about this." "Wait," Kira said suddenly. Both Vorn and Dole turned to look at her. She hesitated for a moment, then continued. "Before we contact anyone, maybe we should talk to a human first." Vorn raised one of his arms in a gesture of confusion. "Why?" "Because maybe they know something we do not," Kira said. "Maybe there is something in their history, some old story or legend that explains this. We should at least ask before we start a galactic incident." Dole considered her words. She had a point. Announcing that human DNA had been found millions of years before humans were supposed to exist would cause chaos. Every species in the galaxy would want answers. There would be investigations, accusations, theories. It would be a mess. "There is a human on this station," Dole said slowly. "Dr. Park Tae. He works in the biology department." Vorn nodded. "I know him. He is quiet. Keeps to himself. But he is a good scientist." "Then bring him here," Dole ordered. "Let us see if he can explain this mystery." Kira moved toward the door, but she stopped before leaving. She looked back at the container on the table, at the tiny sample that had changed everything. A strange feeling settled in her stomach. She could not explain it, but something told her that this discovery was bigger than any of them. Realized, something told her that the universe was about to change. She walked out of the laboratory and headed down the long corridor toward the biology department. Her footsteps echoed against the metal floor. The station was quiet today. Most of the crew was either resting or working in their own sections. No one knew yet about the discovery. No one knew that everything they believed about humans was about to be questioned. Kira found Dr. Park Tae in his small office, sitting at his desk with a cup of coffee in his hand. He was a simple-looking man, average height, with short black hair and kind eyes. He wore a white lab coat over his clothes, and there was a small smile on his face as he read something on his tablet. He looked up when Kira entered. "Hello," he said warmly. "Can I help you with something?" Kira took a deep breath. "Dr. Park, we need you in the main laboratory. We have found something. Something strange." Tae raised an eyebrow. "Strange? What kind of strange?" Kira did not know how to answer. How could she explain that they had found his species' DNA in a place it should not be? How could she tell him that humans might not be what everyone thought they were? "It is better if you see it yourself," she said. Tae set down his coffee and stood up. "All right," he said simply. "Lead the way." As they walked back through the corridor, Kira watched him from the corner of her eye. He seemed calm, relaxed even. He had no idea what was waiting for him. No idea that his entire understanding of his own species was about to be tested. Or so she thought.